We're live! Welcome to another episode of Roxim Live. This is where we talk about Roxim and how you can use it more fully. I've got 5 people that have started with me today. Mark Gillette from Orlando and Joel Noble from Littleton, Colorado. So if you're just joining in, say hello and where you're watching from, like Mark and Joel Noble did. I have my monitor over here. I'm monitoring the comments. So if you have a question about using Roxim or Roxim Pro or the Launch Visualizer, I can try to answer those here today. Yeah, no questions yet. So I'll just keep talking until somebody tells me what to talk about in the form of a question. Where am I? Let me turn my desktop camera on so you can see my screen. So this is my screen. This is the Roxim or the Apogee Components website, and this is where you'll find out information on how to use Roxim. Roxim is a rocket design and simulation program where you can design a rocket like this. You can't see it because my face is too big. And then you can simulate how high it goes. So you can find out before you even start building how high it's going to go and how it's going to perform. So that's kind of an overview. If you want to get more information on how to use Roxim, go to the website apogeerockets.com and then go to the How-To and Guides menu, click on that, and then come down here to software, because it is software for your computer. Click on that, and this is where all the good information is, like about Roxim, version history, frequently asked questions, the features of Roxim, and then there's tutorials on this side. Like this is our normal video tutorials, like if you were just starting. And then there's some people, for some reason, when they load Roxim for the first time, they're missing their rocket motors. So we've put in a how-to frequently asked question on how to load missing motors back into Roxim. Roxim Live training, which is what we are right now. This is where we archive all the previous episodes. Like we're on episode 47 today because we have 46 that's been archived already, and this is the link to it on YouTube. And then here's the topics that we talked about, and then the timestamps on when you can find them in the video on YouTube. Oh, we got Sean O'Brien from Philadelphia and Ethan Edwards from New Mexico and Rosa from Ottawa. Cool. Thank you all for participating today. And this is Audience Participation Day, where you get to ask your questions. Although it's audience participation every Friday, because this show episode is about what you want to know, what you want to learn about Roxim and how to make it work. I am waiting for questions to come in. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. Give me a question. My Launch Visualizer is not working today, and I'm upset about that. The Launch Visualizer, I can see if I can bring it up. There it is. It's on that screen. I went to the wrong screen. I got 2 screens, and one got slid over to that side. The Roxim Visualizer is at roxim.com. This is our new program for simulating flights. You can't design it, but you can simulate it. And the simulations are running, but not the visualize part, where you can actually see the rocket doing something in the air. So when you would start it, you would get this. It was working yesterday. The program, we're still in beta testing, and that's the issue, is we're in beta testing, which means the programmers are still working on it. And they're making changes, and every day they change something. And so I am logged in. Let me load a motor into this rocket. So I'll just show you what's not working. They'll probably be working on Monday because I complained about it to them. I said, I'm trying to advertise this to my customers. And every Friday it seems that something seems to be broken. Okay, so I've loaded the motor, and down here, see the nice little arrow that says launch here. So you click on that. And you can simulate. Oh, ooh, it might be working. Before, this is what it wasn't working. It's loading the simulation. Now, oh, it's working now, but something is definitely wrong. It's loading the maps in the background because this is on a virtual Earth, and it has to load the maps separately from the simulation. And okay, what we're looking at here is a launch site here in Pueblo, Colorado. You can see all the spectators are parked in their cars. The nice thing about this map in the background, it was the image was taking on an actual day of a launch, which is, you know, we only launch twice a month, so the satellite flew overhead and it snapped this photo at the exact moment that we were launching rockets, which is like, what's the odds of that happening? So there's the launch pad right there, and this is a large view of it, and you can click launch, and then the rocket's taking off. You can see the smoke and fire coming out of it, and it's getting its way up into the sky. It's running a little slow. This should be in real time. It seems like it's running a little slower than real time. While that's going on, we have Carlos from Marietta, Georgia. He says, I'm experimenting with aluminum tail cones made from soda cans. That's a Roxim transition. Should I add can material or just weigh the finished part, do paint and Elmer's fill and seal? Also, in Roxim, is CP constant at the same angle of attack despite material being used? Okay, we got some questions, and I can answer those. Okay, so let's pause the launch visualizer and close this out. I'll just close or just minimize this. Okay, so I want to go to Roxim. Carlos is saying that he is making a boat tail transition, and he wants to know how to do it. Okay, so let's open up a rocket design that we can play with. So here's Roxim. You can see it says Roxim. I'm going to go to my design folder, and I got all kinds of rockets in here. So I'll go open up a Zephyr Junior. And we'll open that one. Click on open, and there's the Zephyr Junior. Okay, so he's adding a boat tail. So to add a boat tail to this, so this is the main screen of Roxim after you open a design. I got it in 3D view right now, and I'm going to change it to 2D. So all these other ones up here are 2D. These are side view, top view, base view, and then 3D. So it doesn't matter which one I choose. Okay, so we're going to add a boat tail here on the back. Okay, and this rocket is 2.2168 inches in diameter. So that's there to there. And we'll add a boat tail. So I'll go to the Design Components tab. So when you're designing a rocket, you move like across the tabs here. So I'm going to go to Design Components. And we want to put a boat tail here, so we need to attach it to this tube. So if you click on the tube here in this screen, it highlights it here, and then it tells you where the tube is in the parts tree. So I'm going to highlight it there, and then I'm going to add a transition right here. So I'm adding a transition, and the first thing it does is it looks in the database, and I'm just going to cancel out of that because I'm going to create it from scratch. And again, it brings up a 2D drawing, and I'm going to change that back to 3D. I mean, 3D drawing, and I'm changing it to 2D. Okay, and now There's no boat tail here yet until I start changing the parts. But what I'm going to do here is I want to create a shoulder, like there's a shoulder on the nose cone up here. So I'm going to go to the shoulder first. And the reason for this is when I create a shoulder, I can choose a compatible body tube diameter so that everything, it'll automatically calculate the diameter of this transition. So I'm going to choose a compatible tube. And I said it was 2.21 inches in diameter, which is a BT70. So what I'm looking for in my description is a 56 millimeter tube, which is 2.22 inches. Close enough. So we'll check that one. And I'm going to say OK. So it added a shoulder here. You can see it in red. And now I'm going to change the length of that. So right now it's 3 inches, 3.27 inches. But I only have so this is the back end of the rocket, and I got a centering ring right here, so I don't have much room for a shoulder, but I do have a little bit of room. So I'm going to take my shoulder length and I'm going to make it shorter. Let's make it 0.5 inches. Okay, 0.5 inches does clear inside of that centering ring right there, so that's good. And now I'm going to go to the General tab. It's going to be made out of polystyrene, and I'm going to make it hollow. I'm going to give a wall thickness 0.035, which is, you know, like a injection molded plastic size. See, and it already put in my front diameter when I chose the shoulder, and I'll just give it a rear diameter and a length. And I'm going to see, I gave it a rear diameter, but you don't see anything in the drawing because it has no length. So the length is right here along that edge. So as soon as I start moving the length, you'll see it show up. And there it is. So that's kind of too long. So we'll go about right there. And we got a 1.75. Let's make it 1.5. Make it a little bit smaller. Okay, so there's our boat tail. I'm going to zoom original. So what I did is I right-clicked with my mouse, and it gives us this context menu, and then I can hit zoom original. All right, so there's the boat tail. Let's assign it a color. So we got a black for 3D color, and this kind of maroon color, magenta color for the 2D color. And I like that color. So although this rocket in 3D is black, and black looks actually pretty good there, so I'm going to leave that. Go back to 2D, and then I'm going to click OK. So now we've got a boat tail. So now, oh, he said his is made out of aluminum tin can or pop cans or beer cans or something. So basically what he's done is he's cut off the top, cut off the bottom, and just unrolled it so it's nice and flat, and then he's going to cut this pattern out of it and re-roll it to create that boat tail. So I can show you that pattern, but to export that pattern, to cut it out, you got to get rid of the shoulder, because it will only unwrap it if there's no shoulders there and if it's hollow. So I'm going to go to shoulders and clear the shoulders. So now there's no shoulders, and then I can export that template, and it's asking me where I want to put the template. I'm going to just throw it on my desktop so I know where it is, and it's going to save it as an SVG format. SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphics, and this is a vector line drawing, which is very precise, and it exported it. And that just tells me it exported it. And so now if I look on my desktop, I'm going to click OK here. If I go to my desktop, I got all these windows open. Let me open, there we go. Okay, go to my desktop. And so here's that transition, and I'm going to drag that. You got to use a vector graphics program to open this. And I'm going to use Adobe Illustrator. Illustrator works, and there's a program called Inkscape, and that's a free program that you can download from the internet, and that will also work. And so this is what that transition is going to look like. So he took the beer can or the pop can, unrolled it, and now he's going to cut out this transition and then rewrap that and make that bow tail. Okay, so I'm going to go back here to Roxim. I'm going to open up the transition. So he's got, the question is, can I add material or just weigh the finished part? Well, you can go to the material. In both ways is what he said will work. So right now you don't see aluminum in here. So we can change this database so that it is in there, and that's his first suggestion: is can I put the material in the database? And the answer is yes. Or the other option is actually weigh it, like he says, and add a mass object. So I'll kind of show you how to do both of them. Right now it's showing this as polystyrene at 5.721 grams of the weight of that boat tail. So if you actually build it and the weight is not the same, what you can do is add a mass object. Say it weighed 7 grams or 8 grams. So what I would do here, I would do a mass override and say, 8 grams, and use this CG information. So you got to check this box right here. If you don't check it, it won't work. And you could see right here, as soon as I check it, it says mass override is on. This is the mass that it calculates, but now we're using a mass override, so we're using this number up here. But you also need to give it a CG location, and the CG location is measured from the front of the part. So you have this transition, and it says right now it's 8 grams, but it's 8 grams right there at the base of the tube, front of the transition. So typically it would be about 1/3 of the way back. So my length on this transition is 1.625. So we'll call it like 0.75 inches. So we'll go back to mass override and we'll say 0.75 inches. Okay, so it moved it, but pretty much nothing moved because that's pretty light. But say it weighed, 20 grams. So when I hit the tab key, watch the center of gravity move. Oh, it didn't move. Why didn't it move? Okay, it must be still pretty light. Did the CG? Oh, it didn't move because I have a user specified CG location right here. Okay, so what that means is, let me go here to mass override. So this mass override is for the entire rocket, where the one that we were just looking at was just the mass override for the tail cone. So here it says 187 grams at 18 inches from the tip of the nose. So if I uncheck this, you'll see this move. So boom, so that moved. Now if I go back to the transition, I can do that mass override, go to that mass override tab. Now this is just the mass of this part right here. And if I change this, now this center of gravity should move. So if I make it lighter weight, it'll move forward. So let's go back to 8 grams. See, then it shifted forward again. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. And then the other way is to change the material database. And for that, you go to the rocket menu here at the top, come down here to edit databases. You can go to materials. I'm going to edit this. So this is where you add a new material or specify that an existing material can be used for a different part. So here I am in the database, And I believe there should be. Why is it giving me a spinning ball? Come on, spinning ball. Okay, there we go. Just took a little while to load everything. There should be aluminum in here somewhere. So I'm just scrolling through the list here, and I'm looking for aluminum. Because if he's got an aluminum can, there's titanium. It's taking like really slow. Okay. I got 130 different materials. Let me sort it by name. Maybe aluminum will be at the very top. I'm going to close some of these other things because I think they're making my computer go a little slow. Okay, so I got 3 different aluminums in here. And they're all, the density of all of them is fairly close. This aluminum has the lowest density, and the aluminum 7075 has the highest density. So I'll just choose this one. I assume that a pop can is probably the cheapest, crappiest aluminum they can find. And so then we're going to say, okay, we're going to use this in the rocket. So you have to check that box right there. And then you have to check these boxes to determine, where you can use that component. For example, that aluminum, we're probably not going to use it as a shock cord, so that's unchecked. But we are going to use it as a transition, so it is checked. And then you click OK. Okay, so nothing's changed. The only thing we changed is in the database we said we can use aluminum for transitions. So now I go back to my transition, and then I go to the material here, and I should find aluminum, that aluminum that we just added. And now it calculates that weight at 14.75 or 715 grams. And it still says the mass override is on, so I have to go here to mass override, uncheck that. Okay, so now it is using this value right here, and it also, the nice thing about doing it this way, it calculates the center of gravity location based on the geometry of the part. So now I'm pretty sure the center of gravity is in the right spot. So that's okay. So that should answer that question. So you can, Carlos, you can do it both ways. Both ways that you said will work. There's advantages and disadvantages. The advantage of doing the last way of changing the material is that you get a more accurate prediction of the center of gravity location. The disadvantage is it takes more time to set it up. But once it's set up, then it's fine. Okay, so the second question is CP constant at the same angle of attack despite the material used? And the answer to that one is CP does vary with angle of attack, and it doesn't matter what the material is. And we can show that by running a simulation. So to run a simulation, you click on this button right up here, which is like the rocket coming down on the launch pad. That's called Prepare for Launch, and it brings up the Roxim simulation properties. So we need to, first thing, we're going to move along these tabs again, and we'll start by engine selection. So come here to engine, choose engine, and it doesn't matter which one I'm going to choose. I'll just throw in an E20, and I'll give it a 10-second delay, and click OK. Flight events, the parachute's going to deploy a maximum ejection delay. Starting state, let's make this a little longer. Let's make it 60 inches, launching straight up. In our launch conditions, we have, let's make it a steady wind. So I'm going to do a custom speed range. To make a steady wind, both the low wind speed and the high wind speed have to be set to the same value. So I'm going to set both of them to 8 miles an hour. Okay, so now when we launch this rocket, we'll have on my screen the wind coming from the left blowing to the right at 8 miles an hour. And then we'll click flight profile and we'll launch it. First we'll see what this flight looks like. So here's the rocket sitting down here. And let's launch that, and the rocket takes off. It's going up. You can see this is the smoke. The smoke is drifting to the right because we said we have an 8 mile an hour wind. And now the parachute is opened and it's coming down under parachute. Okay. And we're at over 1,000 feet yet. And we'll just move it along to where it gets down to the ground. Okay, so that's what the flight looks like. It looks pretty straight. You know, it stayed within the weathercocking cone, which is these black lines. That means that the rocket went more straight. We want the apogee point, the highest point in the flight, to be inside of that cone. So this is a good flight. So I like that. So we'll click cancel. And now, to see the center of pressure change, the center of pressure is this right here. This is center of gravity, this is center of pressure. Center of pressure is where all the aerodynamic forces balance on the rocket. Where center of gravity is where the gravity forces balance. So if you balance it on your finger, a rocket on your finger, you'll find where that center of gravity is. And the center of pressure is where the forces, the air forces, the flowing over, and those are lift and drag, where those are balanced. And for a rocket to be stable, that center of gravity has to be in front of the center of pressure. But that center of pressure can move. And we can show that in Roxim by graphing it. So I'm going up here to the graph button. And on the x-axis, we'll have time. And on the y-axis, we'll leave altitude, and I'll clear these other ones. And we'll add in center of pressure. So here is the center of pressure. So we're going to graph center of pressure versus time. And we'll plot that. And we're going to end the plot at when the rocket reaches apogee. When the rocket reaches apogee. So what this will do, this will make a bigger graph. Okay, so this is time along the bottom, and the blue line is center of pressure, and the altitude line is in black. So we'll do the black one first. So as the rocket takes off, it's going upwards, and about I don't know, 1.75 seconds we have engine burnout, which is right there. And at that altitude position, the rocket is a little over 400 feet in the air. But then it continues coasting upwards to apogee. And apogee occurs, 8.6, 8.7 seconds, somewhere in there. And it's at an altitude almost 1,400 feet. Okay, and it's a nice smooth curve. Now this other one is the center of pressure curve. And you can see as the rocket takes off at 0 seconds, it's a constant number, and then all of a sudden it shifts. So why is it straight and then coming down? And the reason for that is as it's climbing on the launch rod, it's not affected by the wind at all. As soon as it clears the rod, it shifts. And why does it shift? Because remember, center pressure is about forces. So we have a lift, we have the wind coming in from the side, and it's causing a force here. And that force means there's more lift forces now than there was before when it was on the rod. And so it's seeing that, and then so it shifts position. And it just says our center of pressure is shifting. It's shifting forward. It goes from 22.75 inches, so 22.75 inches from the tip of the nose, and then as soon as it shifts, it goes to 22.0 inches. So it shifted like about 0.7 inches. So it went from like here to here. So it's not much. As long as it doesn't shift all the way in front of the center of gravity, because that's bad. Because by definition, for the rocket to be stable, the center of pressure has to be behind the center of gravity. So as it comes off the rod, and if it shifts all the way in front of the center of gravity, now the rocket can go unstable, and that's bad. And we can simulate that. The way we can simulate that is one of two ways. We can either shorten the launch rod, so it, and I'll show you that one. We can shorten the launch rod, and the other thing that we can do is increase the wind, so there's more force hitting from the side. So then it shifts, but then the rocket's gaining speed, and the center of pressure moves back again. So what's going on is the rocket's starting to oscillate, and that's why you're getting these back and forth right here. As it oscillates, it's also weathercocking a little bit into the wind. So now you got the angle of attack on the rocket is going more and more to 0. It goes from a high angle of attack as it clears the rod. And then let me show you that. I can show you that real quick. So I'm going to add angle of attack. Where's the angle of attack? Pressure, wind drift. Oh, here it is, wind angle of attack. And let's make that one red so you can see it. So same graph. So you can see the angle of attack. Here's 0 angle of attack, right where the thumb is on my pointer. And it's getting closer and closer to 0 as the rocket picks up speed and goes higher and higher. So until it gets to 0, that center of pressure is shifting around. The worst case situation is when the rocket's flying the slowest and it's just clearing the launch rod. Okay, so let's shorten the launch rod. So I'm going back here. I gotta quit some of these programs that are popping up things here. So remember, our starting state controls the launch rod. Let's make it a really short launch rod, like 1 inch. And do that flight profile again. And let's see what happens. It probably won't change too much. It changed 1 foot, less than 1 foot. So this rocket coming off the pad is pretty stable. All right, so that's fine. And then the other thing that we can do is change the wind. So let's go back here to the launch conditions and let's change the wind. Instead of 8 miles an hour, let's make it 80 miles an hour. So now we got a gale force wind blowing. This is like almost hurricane winds. Launch this and see what happens. Okay, I don't know if you can see that, but here's our maximum altitude, 61 feet when we're launching in the wind. And yeah, the rocket immediately goes unstable. See that? It's just flipping around. Let's plot that. See, here's the icon for a rocket crashing. Now let's plot that same graph that we just did before. Plot that. Oh, look at this. Oh, this has got so much data going on. It's so erratic because so much is happening so fast. So let's turn off angle of attack. Angle of attack, let's clear that and plot it again. Let's turn off altitude, clear that, plot it. Yeah, okay, so as it comes off the launch pad, again, our center pressure while it's on the rod is like 22.5 inches from the tip, measured from the back. And then as soon as it clears the rod right here, it goes all the way to like about 18.7 inches. And if we come over here, here's that center of gravity. The center of gravity location is at 20.8 inches. So if the center of pressure shifts to the 18 point something, that means it shifted in front of the center of gravity. Always, always bad. This is why you got to watch your winds and longer launch rods. So, so that's bad. So now if we make a longer launch rod, let's do that, and maybe we can make it go stable again without changing the wind. So on my starting state, instead of a 1-inch launch rod, let's make it 100 inches. So a little over 8 feet. And let's do the flight profile and see what happens. Not much higher. It went to 135 feet, so I can see that. It probably still went unstable. Yeah, as soon as it clears the rod, it's just too much wind. This is the cool thing about Roxim, and why it's so educational, because you can play with all this stuff without endangering anybody. Okay, so the question that Carlos asked was, is CP constant? And the answer is no, CP is not constant, not at all. Not unless you have zero angle of attack, which would be launching straight up with no wind. Then your CP would stay the same. We have DB Crypto from Shenzhen. Wow. Shenzhen in China? We have Johan from the Netherlands again. And he asked, can I also download a trial version of Roxim 9? And the answer is yes, of course. We'd love for you to download a Roxim trial version. Let me go back to the website and I'll show you where to get it. So here's the website, apogeerockets.com. You can just go to home and go to How To and Guides, go to Software, and Roxim 10 free trial. Click on that, and you'll fill in your name and your email, and you have to select your operating system. It's either Mac or Windows, because we have both versions, and we'd like to know where you heard about us. So if you saw it here on YouTube, say Roxim Live on YouTube. And this is, as soon as you click send now, I'll get an email saying that you wanted to download it, and then you'll also get an email saying here's the instructions on where to download it. And we do that so that we know who's downloading it. We're not sophisticated enough to spam people. So your email is safe with us. Yeah. So that's where you download it. And Johan says, yes, and propellant burns so the CP moves to tail. Johan, you got that wrong. The CP doesn't move as the propellant burns. The center of gravity moves as the propellant burns. I think that's what you meant to say. So the center of gravity is here. As the rocket is burning propellant, that CG is also shifting because the back end is getting lighter weight. If this is getting lighter, it's got to shift more towards this, because remember, that's the balance point. And and if the rocket, the back end is getting lighter, we got to move our pivot point further forward. And you can see that as well in the graphs. So instead of plotting CP, we can plot the center of gravity and plot that one. And you'll see, here's the plot of that. It starts out at 20.87, and then it shifts all the way to 20 point somewhere down here, 20.38. So that's because it's burning off the propellant. And then once the propellant is burned off, then you have a constant center of gravity location. And Johan says, sorry, the caliber of stability increases. And yes, that's right. Because the center of gravity is moving forward, this number gets larger. Can we plot the caliber? Yeah, static stability margin right there. Plot graph. Yes. Why is this moving? The center of gravity is shifting forward, and you see that, you see right here, the rocket is still on the launch rod, this kind of nice smooth curve right here. And as soon as it leaves the launch rod, then the CP is constantly in flux. So if there was no wind, you would see that or the static stability margin getting bigger and bigger and bigger because the center of gravity is moving further and further forward. Take cover at 80 miles an hour. Yes. Carlos K says wish list item. Which is the wish list item? Carlos says, I'm lazy. When we have to set the wind direction and speeds located in loaded a motor in Roxim, could a future version suggest a launch angle and direction for the shortest hike? The answer to that is, that's a hard question to answer. Let me save this design and I'll show you. Save as. I'm going to throw it on the desktop. I'll call it Zephyr Junior with boat tail. Hit save. And now I'm going to kind of close that, and I'm bringing up Roxim Pro. Now Roxim Pro, I can show you better. Roxim Pro has a feature called uncertainties. And so we'll set up the same simulation. Let's open up that last simulation again. Come on, open. Okay, Zephyr Junior with boat tail. Click open. And it'll load, and I'm not going to save that. Okay, so here's that one that we just did, and we'll reload this one right here, an E20-10. And then we'll change the uncertainties. So choose an engine. So it's an E20-10. Click OK. Flight events, deploy at maximum ejection delay. Let's just deploy it at Apogee, just to kind of limit things. And then the starting state, 60-inch launch rod, and let's launch it straight up, so 0-degree launch angle. The azimuth angle is north, south, east, west, but since we're launching straight up, our azimuth angle doesn't matter because we're straight up. Launch conditions, I'm not sure where this launch site is. I think this is in Colorado. This, in Roxim Pro, you also have a geodetic location on the Earth. So you have a latitude and a longitude and an altitude above sea level. And the wind table, we've got a 8-mile-an-hour wind coming out of the west. Okay, so let's change the uncertainties, and I'm going to change everything to 0 here except for the launch angle. Okay, so that one. Okay, the azimuth, okay, 0 degrees. Okay, the elevation angle. So this is our angle from vertical. And let's change that to plus or minus 20 degrees. So, so he wants to know what launch angle can I do to have the shortest walk. And I don't know what the launch angle is with 8 miles an hour, but we can go plus or minus 20 degrees in either direction. So that's what this is saying. And then we're going to run uncertainty. So basically we're going to run this simulation over and over and over again, just changing the launch elevation angle. And let's do 100 simulations in a row. And let's launch it. Okay, so while that's working, I'm going to open up Google Earth because I need to have Google Earth running here. So, oh boy, this is going to take 7 minutes. We can't do 7 minutes. Why is this simulation taking so long? It's going only 1,380 feet. It's going a little faster now. 5 minutes. I'll let it run till it gets to, just a minute or two. While it's doing that, let's see if we have any more questions. Carlos K says some scatter plot. That's exactly what I'm showing you, Carlos. I'm going to show you a scatter plot. But the scatter plot is only available in Roxim Pro. It's not available in Roxim, and you'll see why here in just a second. Roxim Pro is 6 degrees of freedom, so I got azimuth angle as well as elevation angle. Where Roxim, I don't have an azimuth angle. I only have an elevation angle, so I can only go this way. Where Roxim Pro is, I can go all around the compass in any direction. So we've gone 25 simulations so far. And here in the background, I have Google Earth running. And I'm going to cancel this now. So I'm going to cancel after 30 simulations. Okay, so Roxim Pro calculates 1,198 feet. And the difference is because now we're at a different location on the Earth. And I'm going to put a plot here. So that's an additional button that you don't have in Roxim is this one right here. This is our scatter plot. And it's called a splash pattern. And I can chart it in 2 different ways, the Roxim version or the Google Earth version. And I'm going to do the Google Earth. And it just automatically launches Google Earth, and it's zooming in on our launch location. Okay, so there it is. And that's what the trajectory looks like in Google Earth. And if I come over here, can you see it on my screen? This right here is our last simulation. And if I hit the down arrow, and hit the down arrow again, it will show all the points where the rocket might have landed. So this one right here is the nominal point. If I launch straight up, the rocket's going to arc with the wind and eventually going to come down right there. That's just perfectly straight up. Now these other ones are uncertainties, and I haven't turned them on yet, so let me turn them on. So I'm going to uncheck this and then check it, and that should turn them all on. Okay, so here, what the heck happened? So here is an uncertainty plot of different uncertainties, and something is wrong. Because if you look at this, like looking straight down, that kind of follows a circle. And that's kind of like the azimuth angle got changed, not the elevation angle, because if the elevation angle changes, I would expect my scatter plot to be along this ground track here on the bottom. So if I hover over these uncertainty points, you can't see it too well, but if I click on one, there's a couple of points right there. If I click on one, okay, there it goes. Okay, so now what it's telling me at that point, for the rocket to land right there, I've changed the azimuth to 32 degrees. So instead of launching north, north would be 0, east is 90, so 32 is kind of northeast, and it was launched at an elevation angle of 10.450 degrees. So why is this azimuth angle at I know why now. It just hit me. Because when we started, there was an azimuth angle, and I said, let's just ignore it. Well, I ignored it, but the software didn't ignore it. And once I started angling the launch rod, it angled it on that 32 degrees. So that was that point. All right, where'd my plot go? There it is. And if I choose a different uncertainty right here, like let's try P7. Again, 32 degrees, but this is an elevation angle of minus 5.6 degrees. So that's the scatter plot. So why? But my question is, that doesn't seem quite right to me, because I don't remember the... I guess that's possible. I guess so. Because a positive launch angle would be angling it towards the north, and a negative would be angling it this way, which would actually, instead of putting it at 32 degrees, you can't tell, but I'm this way, it's going to go this way. So basically I'm aiming in the opposite direction. But that's kind of cool though. So that's the scatter plot, but that's only available in Roxim Pro. So to find the shortest distance, let's run one more. So my controls, starting state. So 32 degrees. Let's go to the north. Make it 0 degrees. So, and we'll angle it. Let's call it like 5 degrees from vertical. Now we're definitely angling it north. And on this uncertainty, let's change it 4 degrees elevation and 5 degrees azimuth. And let's see if it runs faster this time. And I'll check the comments. Johannes de Sloper says, just a joke again. I live in the Netherlands. Is a launch site below sea level also possible? That's a good question. Let's try it. I am going to go into the launch visualizer for that. And so let's go to the launch site. And this is loading maps. I'm doing a lot of things on my computer again. So it's a little bit slow. If I wasn't running the live stream and Roxim and the launch visualizer all at once, this would probably be faster. Let me cancel out of Roxim here. We've got 15. Let's go cancel. So it ran 15 simulations. Come on, it's got to finish storing the data. Okay, it finished storing the data. So Johan is in the Netherlands. So let's find the Netherlands. So I'm zooming out. So so I can see the entire Earth. Now I'm starting to see the curvature here. Let me rotate it around to put north at the North Pole at the top. Too far. Come on, stop rotating. I put the North Pole at the South Pole. Come on, let me try to grab it again. Do it slower. Let's zoom out. Can I make this bigger? No. Because I want to find a launch site in the Netherlands. That's what I'm looking for. Still in the United States. There's Colorado right there in the middle. Zoom out. Let's rotate the Earth around to get to Europe. Yep, there's Africa. There's the Netherlands. Okay, Johan, if you know where your launch site is, give me the coordinates and we can put it in. Otherwise, I'm just going to choose a open field somewhere in the Netherlands. Here's Amsterdam. This looks like some nice grassy areas right in here, like Vinum. I can't pronounce any of these names, so if I'm butchering them, forgive me. Even though I'm Dutch, I'm not from the Netherlands, I'm from Chicago. Here's a nice field right here. Look, it's nice and flat. So I'm going to put my launch pad right there. And I'll confirm that launch site. And it says my altitude above sea level at that point is 138 feet. So I'm above sea level, not below sea level. So I guess I got to go maybe north towards the coast. Somewhere closer to the sea. Okay, here's some water. Oh, not close enough. Oh, there's Amsterdam. Okay, there's some water. All right, let's go here. This looks like a nice spot right there. I'll put my launch pad right there, confirm launch site. And that one says it's even higher. Probably the reason is these maps are supplied by this company called VTS, or they supply the elevation. The maps themselves, the images are supplied by Microsoft, by Bing. But we'll launch from there. We'll just launch it from there. Come on, launch. Okay, it put me back in Colorado. I thought I confirmed the launch site. Well, anyway, the answer to your question, Johan, is yes, you should be able to, if the elevation in the map is correct, then it will launch there. So basically, it'll launch where you want it to launch from. So I think I'm back in Colorado here, although I'm in green. Let's see where I am. Nope, I'm in the Netherlands. Where's the coast? North is this way. There's the coast over there. All right, let's drag it around so that I got north pointing up, so I can kind of situate myself. Okay, so the launch pad is right there. We got the coast and the beach. I guess these are some dunes. We got some scrub brush over there. So there's the pad right there. You can kind of see our weathercocking cone. And let's launch it. And it's taking off. Yeah, this is running really slow. My computer, because I'm trying to do so much at one time. Taking a lot of horsepower, or I don't know, I guess you call it electron power. Oh, he gave me a launch site elevation. I will try that, Johan, and I will put it into the launch visualizer so that if you go to the launch visualizer, it will show up for you. So that you can launch your rockets there. And if you know the exact coordinates of where the pads are, that's even better, because most of the time when clubs give you coordinates, it's kind of like at the intersection of two roads, because that's how you're going to get to it with your GPS. And then once you get to the field, then the launch pad is actually located somewhere else. So this rocket took off, and it's coming down right there, which is kind of cool. So I'm gonna stop it. Okay, and close that. I'm gonna close the launch visualizer. Let's go back to Roxim Pro because we wanted to see the scatter plot with that other one. Okay, so here's that last simulation that we ran right before we went, and I need to. Okay, let's do. Let's change some colors here because we're going to have two plots on the same screen. We'll make the newest one green. Click OK and then go to Google Earth. And where's my Google Earth? Right down there. Okay, so we ran this simulation twice, which is why you're seeing two trajectories here. The first one we launched straight up, and then the second one we launched at an angle, I forget what it was like 4 or 5 degrees, and it was due north. And that's why this green one doesn't follow the same trajectory. And these uncertainty points, let me see where those are from. Either the first one or the second one. Come on. Let's turn this one off. Okay, so those uncertainty points were from the first one. Let me turn off those. I just want to see the trajectory. Launch point. Okay, so there's the first one. And then the second one is this one right here. Turn those on. Wait a minute, did I turn on the right one? How come it says Estes Alpha? I don't want an Estes Alpha. I don't want an Avion. Running low on time here. Oh, temporary places. Okay, that's Zephyr. Here's the second one. That's the second one. And I'm not seeing the uncertainty points though. Come on, with this big mouse, it's hard to turn them all on. So there, you can see these are a lot closer together because I didn't vary my elevation angle that much. And most of these ones are in the water. There's a pond right there. You see the pond? I'm landing in a pond. It's pretty cool though. Okay. Awesome. I think hopefully that answers your question, that you can launch from below sea level. Carlos says if 10-meter walk is worth $1, then Roxim Pro is worth saving you distance. Yes, it will save you. It'll save you a lot of walking because you can angle your launch pad. You know, basically, if I wanted to not walk this far, I'd probably launch into the wind. Remember, we said our wind is coming from the west. And in this diagram here, north is straight up along this road, and we launched towards that direction. But as soon as it hit the wind, it started going with the wind until it hit Apogee, and then once the parachute deployed, then it started just drifting with the wind coming down. Okay, so that was a very cool live stream today. We had a lot of good questions, and I thank you for coming. So I think we're done. I don't want to. We're already past an hour, so I don't want to go any longer. You know, I value your time, and I don't want to keep you here if you don't want to be here. Obviously, you can leave if you want. So thanks for coming. We will be back again next Friday, the 17th. And we're coming close to Christmas. And I think, is Christmas on a Saturday this year? I can't remember. 17 and 7 is 24. Yeah, so Christmas Eve will be the 24th. So yeah, we should be here. I'll be here. If anybody wants to watch on Christmas Eve, maybe instead of out shopping, you could be out flying rockets with me in Roxim and Roxim Pro. So again, thanks for coming. This is Roxim Live. We do these every Friday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, which is 4 p.m. on the East Coast. And I don't know what time it is in the Netherlands, but thank you for coming. And there was somebody also here from China, so that must be like, man, that's like in really early morning. So we're gonna end this in 3, 2, 1. Go out and launch something.